Hello everyone. In this tutorial series, we will learn Python programming language and then we will use Python programming to implement different concepts of artificial intelligence. So the topics that we will cover in today's lecture are classes, lists, tuples, sets, and dictionaries. You must have seen switch control structure in different programming languages, including C, C++, C Sharp, etc. But Python doesn't have this control structure. So in this lecture's video, we will also learn how to use switch control structure, or rather how to mimic the behavior of switch control structure through the dictionary data type of Python. Let's begin with classes. Since this is an advanced course, so I assume that you are already familiar with object-oriented concepts. We're not studying the details of OOP here again. For that, if you want, we can do another tutorial later. But right now, we will see how to implement the OOP concepts in Python. Before starting, let's quickly revise what is a class. In object-oriented programming, a class is a blueprint or a template for creating objects. So you can say that it is a custom data type where you can design the structure and later on you can use that structure as many times as you want by declaring the variables of that class. So let's say maybe this is our structure. We define something like this. Maybe we want to design something which has two integer variables and maybe one floating point variable and maybe one function. So this is the structure of our class, right? Okay, so later on, whenever we declare any variable of this class, maybe this is a variable of this class, these three variables, two integer variables and one floating point variables, which we declared here, will be created automatically, and this variable will always be able to point to this function of the class which we created here. And if we create another variable, same thing will be copied for it. So again, it will have three variables, two integer variables, one floating point variable, and it will be able to access this function. Now, first of all, the variables of any class are known as objects of that class. So whenever we create any object, whenever we create object of this class, these three variables will automatically be created in them. So we won't have to create these three members, these three variables again and again for each object of this class, right? We will design it once and they will be created automatically. Now these variables in the class are known as attributes, and this function is known as method or member function, right? And all the objects of this class can point to this function, can access this function. Okay, so this was a quick overview of class in object-oriented programming. Let's see how will we use this concept, how will we implement this concept in Python. Now we just learned that the variable of any class is known as an attribute and the function of any class is known as a method or a member function. So in Python, when you want to create a class, you have to use the keyword class, and then you will write the name of your class, which is my class here, and then followed by that you have to write a colon. And after that, the body of your class will be indented. So we know that the body of any structure in Python is always indented. So we use indentation instead of brackets in Python. Now this I is the attribute of class. This is one variable. And we already studied that to declare any function, you have to write the keyword def, and then you write the name of your function, and followed by that, you can write any arguments in the function, and then a colon, and then the body is indented. So whenever you want to define any function inside the class, it is the same as defining any other function, but there is just one difference. The first argument of the function is always self. So this thing is compulsory. Whenever you are defining a function inside the class, that function must have self as an argument, as the first argument. All right. Now how to create an object of the class? So this is where I have created the objects of my class. So what you have to do, you have to write the name of the object equals to, and followed by that, you have to write the name of your class with two round brackets. So here I have printed the value of my attribute, and here I have called my function and I'm printing whatever that function is returning, and actually it is returning this hello world string, and you can see the output here. Let's see how to write a constructor in Python. So for quick revision, constructor is a function which is always called whenever an object of class is created. So whenever we will create an object of the class, the constructor will always be called once. So to write the constructor in Python, what we do is we write two underscores followed by the keyword init followed by again two underscores, right? This is the name of the constructor, and then as you can see, obviously constructor is a function of this class, so we always have to write self whenever we create any function in the class. So the first argument is always self, and then later on you can write different arguments whichever you want. So you can see the example here. We have written def because we always write def before creating any function, def. So this is the name of our constructor. This is the self argument, which is compulsory in the functions of class, and these are the other arguments, right, which we wanna pass. Now here we have assigned the variables which are passed to this constructor, real part and image part, and we have assigned them to the attributes of the class. So to do that, we always write self.r. So self means that this variable r is the attribute of this class, is the variable of this class. So the name of my class is complex, and when I created an object of this class complex, I passed two variables, right? Two numbers, so 3.0 and 4.5, and you know that 3.0 will be passed to the first argument, first variable, and 4.5 minus 4.5 will be passed to the second variable of this function. So you can see that I have written just two lines of code after the creation of the class. In the first line of code, I am creating an object which is x. And in the second line of code, I'm just printing the attributes of the class. So you can see that I have not called this function in it anywhere, obviously. I have just created this object x. So when I created this object, this function in it was called automatically. Why? Because this is the constructor of the class. So this was called automatically, and this 3.0 and minus 4.5 was passed here. And then later on when I print it, you can see that these are the same values. The output, this is the output, and in the output you can see these are the same values that were passed to this constructor. Python does not support multiple constructors. So in other languages, you must have seen that constructors can be overloaded. So there can be a no argument constructor, there can be constructors with different arguments, but in Python, function overloading for constructors is not allowed. So what should we do then if we want to make a no argument constructor, or if we want that option that sometimes we want to pass some argument and sometimes we don't? So what should we do? So for that, we can use default arguments, right? You can use default arguments in constructor, and that way it will give you the option that maybe you can pass an argument one time and not the other time, right? So because there will be the default value for that argument already present.